I'm Jeremy Klein, and this is Change Work Life. Hello and welcome to Change Work Life, the show that's all about beating the Sunday evening blues and enjoying Mondays again. This week's guest is Caroline McConnellogue. In some ways, you'll find her story quite similar to some others that you've recently heard on the podcast. She had a good job, she started a family, and then suddenly everything changed. Caroline's now got her own business as a change management consultant, and the story of just how she got there really is quite an interesting one. Here's the interview. Hello, Caroline. Welcome to the podcast.
Morning, Jeremy. Nice to talk to you.
Can you start by introducing yourself and telling us what it is that you do?
Yes, certainly. So I am Caroline McConnellogue and I have my own business. I work for myself as a consultant, a business consultant, primarily in kind of helping businesses to implement change. But I pick up projects for companies such as project management, implementing change projects that perhaps they've been wanting to do for some time, don't have the resources to do, etc. So yeah, a bit of an all-rounder really, but that's essentially what I do.
Can you give an example of the sort of, when you say change management, helping companies through change, what sort of changes do you help them with?
If I use my most recent contract, I worked with a group of businesses, companies in Luton, and I managed a diverse bag of projects, which was really interesting, from repurposing their staff intranet. So I kind of led that with a team of their staff, which was really rewarding. I was selling property for them. I oversaw the GDPR. They had issues with GDPR, so I guided that to a successful conclusion. So yeah, a real mixed bag really of interesting projects. I did some HR work with the HR manager and the general manager for one of their businesses. I kind of assisted, mentored a little bit by setting up, some strategy and things like that. So yeah, so it's a real mixed bag of stuff.
So what's your role in all this? I mean, I'm sure that you're extremely talented, but to be an expert on GDPR and an expert on a firm intranet and an expert on HR issues and an expert on everything else that you do. So what's your sort of day-to-day look like in terms of helping companies with this sort of thing?
Well, first, I'm not an expert in any of those fields. I think my talent is getting the best out of people. So those who have the experience in that field. So it's just guiding people. So holding their hand almost to making to fixing problems or to making improvements. So it's more of a project lead, an expert in those fields. But I suppose it is just having that kind of impartial view as a consultant. It's quite a powerful position to be in, because you're not in the company politics, or you don't have to be massively attached to the business to be able to help the staff to drive forward the changes. So it's more of a hand-holding position that I have. And it's very rewarding actually, because it brings I tend to bring the best out of people, so to get things done.
What are the skills that you need for your particular job?
I'm a very people-centric person, so I understand that we're not all the same. People are different. They have different characteristics. I think you have to be very patient, and I think you have to recognise the skills that people have and build teams around you, that complement each other. And I think that's the most valuable tool to have when you are working for different companies who have different personalities and different dynamics. I think if you are able to bring the best out in people and recognise their strengths and their weaknesses, that really helps. And not being too bombastic about things, and having a positive attitude, it kind of, people feed off that. So I think a pretty glass is half full kind of person. So that helps.
And is change manager something that you qualify into, or is it that you just kind of identify a bundle of skills that you've got that is suited for that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's definitely the latter. It's definitely just experiences. I mean, if I'd picked this up 10 years ago, I would no way have been, I wouldn't have had the right to say that, I'm a change manager. I believe that my journey to get here has absolutely helped me in being confident to be able to put myself forward as a change manager, from all the mistakes I've made, all the learnings, all the positive stuff and experience in business. So it's not something you go to university or college to learn to do. I think it's a kind of tag you can give yourself after you've had lots of life career experiences.
Okay. So how do your clients know that they need someone like you, that they need someone to help them with this process? And then how do they go on from that to know that you are the person who can help them?
That's quite interesting, actually, because I'm not 100% sure. There's no kind of right or wrong answer to this, I don't think. I believe how I have approached it since embarking on this kind, because this is relatively new for me. I've been a change consultant for just 1 year now, but I felt that I could tap into businesses that I had connected with from my prior experience as a recruitment consultant. I recognised quite quickly that actually businesses who I connected with and worked with to help them to recruit sometimes didn't actually need somebody permanent. They didn't need to have someone in a role 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I recognised that there were certainly issues that they were having that could be fixed quite quickly. And I suppose, for me, it was very much a case of thinking, actually, I could do that kind of stuff. So really, coming back to your question, I've just tapped into those and kept my connections through LinkedIn and just through networking and speaking with businesses to say, look, if you have any projects that you just want to get done, give me a shout. Let's talk about it. Let's see if there's something I can do. And so it's a very kind of low level. I don't have an amazing website, but I'm kind of tapped into those connections that I've built up over the last few years.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about that. You mentioned before this interview that you started out in travel and tourism. So what were you doing and how did you get into that?
After school, I went to Eastbourne College to do a travel and tourism course. I knew I wanted to be in aviation. I had one of my uncles was a very successful airport person. And I did my first work experience at Gatwick Airport with him. And I just got the bug. I just got it. And I just loved it. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be an air hostess. I didn't want to be a hostie. I just wanted to be part of that whole kind of airport-y vibe thing. So I went to do my travel and tourism course, and I was lucky enough to get my first proper job was for a tour operator. And then I just kept going. I thought, right, this is it. I want to work for an airline now. So I did that. I moved back to Scotland and joined Air UK. Goodness me, yeah, as a check-in agent. And then from there, I just progressed and travelled through to ticket desk, which was the next level up. And then I became a duty manager and then airport manager and did a lot of travel, a lot of good work, and which is why it brought me up to this neck of the woods. I ended up working for EasyJet, and I joined EasyJet in 2000 as a ground operations manager. So yes, that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of the travel and tourism stuff.
And what caused you to leave that industry?
I got married and had my first child. I had my first daughter, and everything changes when you have children, everything. And so I did return to work within a year of having my first child. But it didn't take me long to realise, actually, I don't think I can do all of this. I want to be at home with my baby. And my work was it was pretty demanding. I wasn't a shift worker, but certainly there were projects and certain things, things I was involved with that I wasn't able to give 100% because it was difficult with the little one in nursery and such like. So I kind of, with my husband, decided, actually, I'm going to get off the bus for a little while. I'm going to have a break. And that's what I did. And so I resigned, actually. I was lucky, actually, because I did go back part-time, but it was still a pretty demanding job. I decided to get off that whole thing and stay at home, which I did, but I quickly became involved in a project in the village which I live, and became chair of the preschool, and we got funding for a new building. So our project kind of led that for 5 years. So that was almost like having a job.
That was just a voluntary role?
It was a voluntary position, yeah. So with some other parents in the village, we worked really hard, and when it was worth every bit because we were able to, secure this funding and got this amazing new facility, which is going to be around for a long, long time, and people are enjoying now with their children. So that was excellent. So that when that came to an end, I knew had to do something else. I didn't want to just be, not just, but I wanted to kind of get my brain working again and start working. So my kind of dream as a young girl was always to be my own boss, always be my own boss, which I think is quite a common thing that people have. So I did an Open University distance learning course. It was a really basic course on business studies, which was absolutely brilliant. And I kind of really enjoyed learning, actually. I was never a great academic at school. It wasn't really my thing. I really got into the rhythm of learning new stuff, and I got, the pressure of having to get a piece of work done by a deadline. It was all kind of a bit stressful at times, but it was exciting and I loved it. And that gave me the confidence to really pursue my dream of being my own boss. So I started to apply for jobs and very quickly got really disillusioned and really disappointed because I didn't have any project management qualifications as such. I kept being told by recruitment agencies, oh, no, you can't, no, this is a full-time role. You're not going to, you got to work full-time to get this kind of job. You've got to have project management. You've got to have Six Sigma. You've got to have Prince 2. You've got to have all this stuff. And I was just actually really, really disappointed. And I was surprised. I suppose I was a bit naive as well, thinking I could just walk back into a really cool job that would give me great money and on my terms.
You said, I had an aspiration to be my own boss. You do the OU business course and then you start applying for jobs. What was the thinking there if your aspiration is to be your own boss?
To be honest, during that period of time, I'd just finished the project with the preschool. I'd done my OU course. I needed to earn some money. Best thing to do is get back into a job and pick up my skills. I'd had a bit of a gap and then plan to see where that takes me with a view to starting my own business. I had this kind of consultancy thing at the back of my mind as being my own boss. I think the thing for me was, having spent that 5 years in that kind of voluntary role, I was surrounded by amazing people, amazing talent. I had accountants and, I think every playground has them, lawyers, accountants, HR managers, marketeers. And I just thought, gosh, there's so many great people here. If I can get into a company, I can work for a company, I can bring this talent in, or if I can work for lots of different companies, I can tap into all this great talent because they're all saying the same thing. Oh, I'm really fed up. I can't get a job. I can't get a part-time role. That was kind of my thinking. I didn't have a master plan at that point, Jeremy, for sure. I knew that I had to get something, and if that was working for someone for a period of time whilst I kind of got to the end result, which would have been, which was to work for myself, then that was kind of my plan.
Okay, so after banging your head against a wall for a little while, what was the breakthrough?
The breakthrough for me was researching. I started to research consultants and part-time work, and I was Googling everything and reading about everything. And I came across a recruitment agency. So I was exasperated by recruitment consultants who were just telling me I had to have all these qualifications to stand a chance of getting back into some kind of project work or operational work. And I had to work full time. And I came across a company who specialised in part-time and flexible recruitment. And so my ears pricked up and I just got quite excited, carried on reading. They were quite a local company. And at the bottom, they said that, they have franchise opportunities. So I got on the phone straight away to to the founder, Deborah, and we had a really massively long call. And I said, you haven't got anyone round here. I said, this is great. North Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire is a great area. There's so much talent, so many businesses. And that was it. That's where my journey in recruitment began. It was just a one-off, saw them online and just picked up the phone straight away because it resonated so much with me.
So having been looking for flexible roles, part-time roles, ideally project management roles, and you came across this agency which specialised in that, how did that lead to going into business with them, buying the franchise, rather than using their services to find a role that was suitable for you?
Because it almost opened up new doors for me, because it wasn't just that they resonated with my situation as a professional who wanted to work part-time and have that flexibility around the family, but it also ticked the box for me to be my own boss, to have my own business. It was a kind of a win-win really for me, because I was a an example of the kind of candidates that the agency represented. I was a mum who still had much to offer to businesses and wanted to work, and they were going to be the kind of people that I would be representing. So that was a massive attraction to me. So the conversation with just was great with Deborah at the time. I was really massively excited, and I wanted to pursue the opportunity, which I did. I did invite somebody to join me, so we did it as a kind of joint venture. So I had a business partner to begin with, which worked brilliantly for a number of years. Then we just decided it wasn't working for different reasons, and then I bought them out. So I ran the business solely myself for the last 3 years that I had it. But it was absolutely the right thing to do in the beginning, because we embarked on this really exciting journey together. She was a fellow mum. We were newbies. We were new business owners. We were both new to recruitment. I've never done recruitment in my life. It was a total change from, running a station, an airport with baggage handlers and cargo departments and operations and check-in staff and all that good stuff. It was an enormous change from that type of work. So to have someone with me, shoulder to shoulder, was brilliant. We had a great time. It was a really exciting time.
Why did you think that you could do it, not having had any experience in recruitment before?
I just knew. I think you have a confidence. I think I said it earlier. If you'd have put me in that position 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had the confidence. But having gone through the career that I had, taking the career path that I had, and all the experiences that gave me, leading the project with the community, the preschool, I felt I could do it. Yeah. My Open University course was, as I said, was very valuable. So I had a bit of an understanding about what you needed to know, understand your money, your budget. There was the marketing aspect, the HR aspect. I'd been involved in recruitment naturally in my previous roles, because everyone is, aren't they? You recruit people, you advertise for staff, you interview people. So I had some idea, but certainly not the level of a recruitment consultant. But we were very lucky. We had a lot of good support from the franchisors. So whilst we were quite autonomous in how we ran the business, we were very true to the ethos of the business, and we were very close to the founders and the other franchisees. So it was the best of both worlds in some respects, because while we were business owners, we were in charge of our own time and how we delivered the workshops that we did, etc. But we were very true to the model, and we still felt like we were part of a bit of a team. So it was a nice situation to have, actually.
I don't know very much about franchising, but I do get the impression that it tends to be quite sort of process driven. And if you join a franchise, they give you processes and things that they kind of expect you to do and follow. Was that the case here? And was there starts of lots of training in terms of what they were expecting of you, what being a recruitment consultant for meant, what you were expected to do, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, and I had heard that too. I was kind of in the early stages before committing to buying the franchise. I read many articles and had some kind of advice from family, oh, careful, because there are franchises who have that, I suppose, reputation where you kind of don't have the autonomy that you think you're going to have. You're totally governed by them. This was certainly very different. This was really different. It wasn't like buying a McDonald's or a Domino's. I think that first phone call that I had with the founder went on for over an hour. I remember it clearly, and thinking, I really like her. We quickly met, and she was like me. She had a successful business in the corporate world before her, and her husband had exactly the same experience as I did, which was frustration at being surrounded by amazing talent. Their friends were, and everyone was saying the same thing as they were, as I'm sure in every playground. I've trained to be a solicitor. I've trained to be this. I've trained to be an accountant, and having children has just put a kibosh to that. I can't go back to work because I can't find a job. It won't give me the hours I need. They kind of, I suppose, birthed their product on the back of that. So, which was exactly the situation that I found myself in. They were fine that I had no recruitment experience. I think what was important to them was that I could represent the candidates, and I did have an element of business acumen, but I obviously with my experience and I previous experience. So yeah, it was a good match. It's funny actually, because I used to hold back saying that, oh, I've bought a franchise, because and I didn't always say that. I often said, oh, I have my own recruitment business. And then if asked, I said, yeah, well, I am part of a network of similar, of other agencies that do the same thing. But yeah, there is a bit of a thing about franchises. I think a preconceived conception about they're all the same, but actually they're not. This one certainly wasn't.
But it wasn't that you were particularly attracted to going into a franchise. It was just this specific thing came up that appealed.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I had not even thought about a franchise up until it was just a series of events. I explained earlier, it was just coming away from doing the project in the village and then doing my course and then doing some research, and then it just all happened, one thing after another. That's the way things go sometimes. So it felt really natural. It felt like the right thing to do, but certainly I wasn't pursuing franchises as an option. It was just so happened that it was there on the day I was doing some research.
So you said that you've been doing your change consultancy now for about a year. Let's talk about the transition out of that. Are you out of the franchise now, out of the recruitment?
Yeah. I parted ways last February, actually. So it is a year. I kind of made my mind up actually earlier than that. Obviously, it was not something I just did, woke up one morning and decided to do. It was something that I had considered for some time. I knew I wanted to change direction a little bit. I wanted to really get into business. I wanted to, whilst I loved the recruitment aspect, I learned so much, and it gave me a lot of brilliant contacts, and I met some amazing people, made some fantastic connections between candidate and professional and businesses. But I just was missing something. I like doing stuff. I like making things happen, and I was missing that. So I thought, right, okay, maybe now's the time to see if I can make it as a consultant. It was time for change. I shared my plans with the franchisors before, gave them plenty of time, and tried to talk me out of it. Not talk me out of it, but they wanted to make sure I was certain about my choice and decision. But yeah, it was time. So we had a nice transitional period, and I hung up the keys last year.
And so did that involve selling the franchise to someone, or was it being purchased back, or do you just sort of drop out of it?
I was happy to do that. I think if I could have made more, I suppose I could have, but I wasn't it was fine. My work there was done almost. It's like, my work here is done. Here we are, have it. And sadly, I wasn't able to hand it over to somebody, because that would have been brilliant, because over 6 years, 6.5 years, I had the business. I built up an amazing portfolio bank of talent. I had over 3,000 candidates who had registered with me in the North Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire areas, and also some fantastic clients, brilliant businesses as well. And it would have been really, if I had my own way, I would have handed it nicely over to somebody. It went back into the pot, basically. It went back to the franchisors. So there's nobody actively doing what I was doing. They are doing it, but from their central head office, which is fine. And, and I still get lots of interesting roles come through from them. So it really was a case of, okay, bye, thank you. It's been a blast.
And the transition itself, was it sort of day one you stopped, was your last day at the franchise, and day two you started your own thing? Or how much were you sort of lining yourself up for starting your new business as you exited the franchise?
Well, interestingly, I was very fortunate, because I did literally walk into contract straight away on the back of my experience at 10 to 2. So I had a client who I placed a good number of people with, who came to me and asked if I may have somebody who could fulfill. She had a big list of projects that she was working on, or she wanted somebody to take over from her because she was just so swamped. And that was great. I was like, oh, actually, do you know what? I think I could do this for you. Do you want to have a chat? So I went and spoke to them, explained that I was finishing up at the recruitment agency and launching as a freelance kind of consultant. And this was, there was nothing on the list of projects that I felt I couldn't do. And I said, do you want to give me a go? And she said, oh my goodness, that'd be brilliant. And we knew each other because I'd worked with her before. So she knew what she was kind of getting. She knew the service that I'd given her, and that's how that happened. And I was extremely lucky to walk into that. So, and that was extended from 3 months, and then it was extended to the end of last year. I wanted to rebrand myself. So I had given that thought. I was talking to some connections and businesses that I knew about websites and thinking about how I would market myself. I changed my profile on LinkedIn and began that process of not reinventing myself, but relaunching myself, I suppose, in this new capacity. Yeah, I was very lucky to walk immediately into an exciting contract.
And so a year in, what has surprised you most about what you're doing now?
I forgot how much I really like working with people whilst having the recruitment business. I touched a lot of people, I interviewed lots of people, I delivered workshops, I went to businesses to speak to them about their requirements. I was dealing with people all the time, but when you are working for yourself or you're working remotely at home, it can be quite isolating. And whilst I could deal with that, and I actually learned to do that, it's not an easy thing to do working from home. And I often said this to candidates who were applying for roles which involved home working. I think everyone has this kind of idea that working from home is great, it's brilliant. Oh, I'm working from home. It's a discipline. It's a really important discipline to have, and it's not easy. I had learnt to work from home. I faffed about in the beginning, I think, in all honesty. But then I thought, God, goodness, I really have got to work from home. I can't just keep stopping and taking the dogs out for a walk or putting the washing on or popping up the shop to get a paper, whatever. You really do have to. But I missed that team environment. So the last year for me, whilst I was a contractor, so I wasn't on the payroll, I suppose, I wasn't a member of staff, I enjoyed that position, being in that position, because I had the best of both worlds. So I had the team environment, worked in an office with lovely, great people, and that camaraderie was really nice. But I wasn't involved in the office politics. I didn't get involved in that kind of staffy stuff. I was able to kind of stand back from that and just observe. And I really like the aspect of working for myself in that capacity.
Do you have a 5-year plan? If so, or even a 10-year plan, where do you think this might take you?
I love learning new stuff. And one of the many things that was brilliant about having the recruitment business was it made me realise how interesting different sectors in business are. So you take it for granted, and if you work for an airline, for example, or in aviation, that's kind of all you see. Some of my clients made such a diverse bunch of companies, from companies that made barcodes to go on food packaging to making components for computers, the IT sector, different marketing consultancies, marketing agencies. It's just so fascinating. So for me, I would like to continue to work within business, and it doesn't matter what sector it's in, because I think every sector's interesting, it's fascinating, but ultimately they all have the same issues. They have the same people issues, regardless of what you produce or what you're selling. You need a HR department, you need a marketing department, or at least a marketing plan, or you need someone to look after the premises. So all of those core activities in a business are pretty much the same. I would like to just continue moving around and working for different businesses, continuing to learn, gaining experience, and making a difference, I suppose, is making things happen for businesses. That's what I like to do.
Awesome. Sounds fantastic. In terms of your journey and what you've learned, does any particular one resource or anything stand out? Something that you'd recommend to people, a book that you've recommended, or a quote that's kept you going, or something along the, starting your own business lines, anything you found particularly useful?
The most valuable nuggets I kind of gained and were from people, actually. When I first started the business, one of the most critical, really important aspects of marketing is networking. And I didn't even know networking existed before I started the business. And it's really important. And there's networking on lots and lots of different levels. But networking properly is a really good thing to be able to do, and recognizing standing in a room with like-minded people or businesses who are all kind of there for the same reason is great. And there are some people who do the hard sell, but actually for me it was tapping into people who are really clever, really knowledgeable, and happy to share their knowledge as well. So if you're in arena, or you get the opportunity to network, really get as much out of it as you can. I remember someone saying to me in the very beginning, be a farmer, not a hunter. It was a bit of a kind of quote: take from people what you can. Don't go in there and try and hunt the right people and be almost an aggressive networker. Get as much out of people as you can. So that for me was a really important learning. And just read. There's so many great books out there, but depending on what your thing is, whether you want to go into public speaking or whether you want to, be a great marketeer or how to sales, books on every, there's books for everything. TED Talks is a good book. The founder of the TED Talks, I would certainly recommend if you're interested in being able to kind of build your confidence up in speaking publicly, or to just look into where that all came from, is very interesting.
Fantastic. And where can people find you?
You can find me on a Google search, probably. LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn profile. I don't have an all singing, all dancing website. It's in kind of construction at the moment because I'm not doing that kind of hard sell. But what I am able to do is to connect with people via LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to get me. I'm also happy to speak to people or offer support in job hunting and interview techniques, CV built writing, all that good stuff. So I'm happy to still offer that, because that was a real learning for me as well. What works, what doesn't work when you're applying for work.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, Carol-Anne, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Jeremy.
One of the things that actually excited me the most about the interview with Carol-Anne was her description of 10 to 2, the recruitment agency of which she'd bought a franchise. I actually hadn't had any idea that there was an agency which helped professionals like lawyers and accountants and so on find flexible work in this way. And I think the fact that it's out there, it's just such a great resource and so needed. It was also very obvious the impact networking has had on Carol-Anne's career path and her ability to set up her own business. The benefits of networking has become quite a recurring theme on the podcast, and I've mentioned before that I plan to do an episode dedicated to networking. Well, I'm pleased to say that I've found a great guest to talk on the subject, and the interview with him will be coming out later this year. So if you want to hear that episode and make sure that you don't miss it, then subscribe to the show. Either you can do that on the device that you're listening to this podcast on, or if you go to changeworklife.com/subscribe, you'll find the links there to subscribe to the show. Next week's show is for anyone who thinks that they're an introvert and worries that it might be holding them back, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Can't wait to see you then. Cheers. Bye.